Greetings, everyone, and welcome to AI and Africa. My name is Awasar. I'm Assistant Director for Academic Affairs here at the African Studies Center, Michigan State University. And we're very delighted today to have Nunia Kifle Abebe as our speaker. We're very grateful for this is the third time that we're collaborating with the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor African Studies Center there to have this, or maybe I'm not sure. Is it the African Studies Center? I think so, yeah. So this is a collaboration between MSU and the University of Michigan African Presidential Scholars Program. This is the third scholar that we have. We are hosting in the Eye on Africa series, and it has been a very nice collaboration. And I want to thank Teyapam, who has been the coordinator there, and also my colleague here, Isaac Colombo, who established relationship to allow us to have this collaboration. So thank you very much, Teye, and thank you to the scholars that has presented so far. And today, special thank to Nuneyat Abebe, who's gonna speak today on gender disparities in research areas of AI, focusing on NLP in Ethiopia. And before I pass it over to her, a brief introduction. So Nuneyat Abebe is a lecturer and artificial intelligence researcher at Addis Ababa University within the School of Information Technology and Engineering. She has years of experience in teaching and research with a specialization in natural language processing and language technologies. She holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Gondar and a master's degree in information science from Addis Ababa University. Her academic work focuses on advancing NLP research in low-resource language contexts, alongside a strong commitment to teaching, mentoring, and supporting inclusive participation in AI and computing. And as I mentioned earlier, she's currently a fellow in the Winter 2026 University of Michigan African Presidential Scholars Program. She has presented her research at international and national conferences, including the annual meeting of the Association for Computational Linguistics, and actively contributes to research, community service, and capacity building initiatives in Ethiopia. So thank you again, Nuneyat Abebe, for being here and sharing with us. Now I pass it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sar. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. So my name is Nunias Kifle Abebe. I am a lecturer at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. I'm currently a UMAP's visiting scholar at the University of Michigan in the winter cohort. I really would like to begin by thanking the African Studies Center at University of Michigan and the African Studies Center at Michigan State University to be able to organize this webinar and inviting me to present my research. So saying this, today I'll talk about gender disparity in artificial intelligence research, focusing on specifically natural language processing. We often call it NLP in case of Ethiopia. So my presentation is structured in several parts. So I'll briefly explain why artificial intelligence and NLP matter. And also I will discuss on gender inequality and language inequality briefly in AI, focusing on NLP. And I'll introduce my research questions and the conceptual frameworks that has guided my research. And I'll also explain the theoretical ideas, and then we will discuss on why Ethiopia is an important case study. And finally, we will see some methodology parts and preliminary findings. This is an ongoing research project, so I'm planning to do a research more on artificial intelligence, but for now, I'll be focusing on natural language processing only. Yeah, so let's begin by why we need AI and NLP. So artificial intelligence is increasingly becoming a critical digital infrastructure. So becoming a critical part of modern infrastructure, we mean like it's almost becoming basic like electricity, internet, roads, and things like that. So artificial intelligence now supports many services that people rely on almost every day. It facilitates activities almost every day. So artificial intelligence is used in many sectors, including healthcare, education, transportation, agriculture, communication, and in some other sectors too. So saying this, governments and companies are investing heavily in AI technologies because they believe AI will drive economic growth and innovation. So one key area of artificial intelligence is natural language processing, which enables machines to understand and communicate with human language better. For this example, I think it will be best if we see Siri, as you all have been encountered with Siri. So, for example, voice assistants such as Siri use NLP technology to understand what users say and respond with useful information. So these systems work through several steps. As you see in the presentation, there are many components that makes up a Siri kind of system. So there is automatic speech recognition, there is natural language understanding, there is natural language generation, and there is text-to-speech components. So I put this because I want you to understand how NLP works and what is NLP like, why it matters. So there is automatic speech recognition. That means when we speak to Siri or tell Siri to assist us, it recognizes our speech, and then it have a component that understands what we are saying. Then there is a natural language generation, which Siri responds to us with the specific request. And then there is text-to-speech technology, which changes text to a speech or speech to text, vice versa. So this all thing we see here, it's a language technology, which we call it NLP, or natural language processing. So what is the problem here? Although Siri is known to be the best voice assistant, it assists a few communities that speak certain languages. So many researchers shows that that NLP technologies do not support all languages equally. So what do we mean by that? There is a study conducted by Josh and his colleagues in 2020, and this showed that most NLP research focuses on a very small number of languages. And those languages include dominant languages such as English, French, Japanese, and languages like that, Spanish, yeah. So thousands of other languages receive very little technological support comparing to this technology. So we can test our voice assistants to respond to us with our local languages. For example, if I say something if I ordered Siri something in my local language or any of your local languages, I don't think it will support most of it. So this results in either of the three. So imagine asking Siri something and in your local language, and it doesn't understand you at all. This is the first scenario. Or imagine asking Siri something and it understands you, but it couldn't respond the right way. So it responds, but like it's not responding as it's supposed to be. So these are the three problems in that kind of language technology. So this means that many communities around the world cannot fully benefit from this language technologies, which is a sub-discipline of AI. So saying this, let's move to gender disparity in AI and NLP, which will be the other focus of our research. So another important issue is in AI is gender inequality. So women are significantly underrepresented in many areas of computer science and many of STEM fields. We know that women are underrepresented in STEM fields, but we have also researchers that supports and well documented in several studies that AI workforce and research communities lack a significant number of female researchers. So again, why does this matter? So research shows that people who design technologies influence how technologies are built. It matters because the way we develop and design our technologies affects how that technology affects the society. So it's both ways. So here we can mention a research done by Young and his colleagues in 2022. So this research found out that gender diverse research teams often produce more balanced ideas. And this suggested that when participation is unequal, research outcomes may also be limited and as well as biased. So in addition, the well-known paper on the dangers of stochastic parrots, you can look it up if you are interested in this, by Bender and colleagues argues that AI systems reflect the values and the priorities of the researchers and the institutions that create them. So when we say researchers, the specific researchers that design AI, that make the data sets, that trains the data, and who are directly involved in the research. And also when we mean by institutions, companies, government, all these participants contribute to the design, and that contributes and that affects how the society is going to use the system. So again, this means that unequal participation can influence data sets, design decisions, and also institutions and research priorities. So gender inequality can also appear directly in AI systems. Here we can mention one key research done by my Ethiopian fellow Timnit Gabru. She worked on with her colleagues. She worked on data sheets for data sets. So this is a very interesting work. So here, data sets should include documentation, how they were created, just like how tools or software programs are documented. We need a documented data sets. So this documentation should explain, who created the data set, why it was created, what language was used during that research, and what populations were used. What are the limitations or the biases that are already existing? If the data set we are using has already a bias, then we should report it when we do the system and design or develop the technology. So this explains many NLP data sets mainly includes, only the dominant language that I mentioned earlier, which is like English, Chinese, and some other European languages. So here we ask, what about Africa? What about Ethiopia? What about their languages? And so we usually use Western data sets to train our models because mostly these languages are very under-resourced. When we come to gender, who collected the data? And who annotated the data? Who did the labor work? What perspectives were there when building, when designing this AI technology? So this really matters. So back to the examples that I mentioned. For example, like language technologies and models sometimes associate certain professions with specific genders. That's where the bias comes. So sometimes the system links the word doctor with men, and nurse with women. So these patterns come from, training a historical biases that present in the data, and when we train our models. So here in the image, you can see Google Translate. So here I have taken one sentence that says, the nurse is helping the patient. So this is a neutral English sentence. So when Google Translate translates this into Amharic, which is one of Ethiopian local languages, it says nurሷ በሽተኛውን እየረዳች ነው, which means the nurse, the lady nurse, or the woman is helping the patient. So this is a machine translation, which is one part of NLP. And in this system translates in a neutral English sentence into a female gendered sentence. So this shows that there is a bias on the training data sets. Okay, so we can see another example here. So here there's a picture. We're not going to talk about image generation, but still this is a Google search which has an NLP part on it. So when you type doctor versus nurse or doctor and nurse, this is mostly the first image that appears in your first page. So this means that there's a lot of bias here. There is a color bias. There's also a gender bias because the system refers the women. This is AI generated image, not actual image. So the woman is a nurse and the man is a doctor. So this is how these systems translate into real systems. So there's also another research that revealed about large language models like ChatGPT. We all use or somehow familiar with ChatGPT. So specifically, the model tended to link words such as English, philosophy, and humanities with girl or female, while words such as physics, chemistry, and engineering with a man or a boy. So this is where the bias comes. So the research gap here is that global researches highlight gender inequality in AI, but most of this research lacks a deeper analysis of the underlying structure and epistemic factors that shapes the gendered knowledge production in NLP, which is a subfield of AI. And we hypothesize that this gap may be more pronounced in Africa more. So much less researchers examines gender disparity in AI research communities in Africa. And many global studies discussed this gender inequality in AI, but they usually focused on large technology companies that exist in the Western research institutions. So at the same time, many African languages remain underrepresented in these technologies. So my research therefore examines the intersection of these two important issues, which is gender inequality and language inequality in NLP research. So language technologies frequently prioritize dominant languages, and it doesn't have many support for the diverse linguistic communities in Africa. So as I said before, the main objective of this research will be to quantify the extent of the gender gap in NLP research and explore possible ways to reduce it at least in the case study of Ethiopian NLP research, and then we might experiment it in other African countries too. So the study examines, as I said earlier, gender and language inclusion areas. So the research questions here are: what patterns of gender disparity exists in NLP? Research outputs at Addis Ababa University, which is an oldest and a leading university in Ethiopia. How has this changed over time and which research topics and languages are being studied. What social, institutional, or structural factors contribute to this gendered Ethiopian NLP ecosystem? And finally, what values are being encoded in Ethiopian AI focusing on NLP research? So the conceptual work framework here is based on the idea that representation in research communities influences knowledge production. So the framework can be described in 4 steps as you see in the presentation. So first, there's a gender representation in NLP research. So here, gender representation within research communities influences who participates in research, which is going to be investigated. And second, this participation shows or shapes knowledge production, how knowledge is produced within that specific gender representation. For example, there are topics, data sets, and languages. How are these how, in what circumstance does the knowledge is produced using these topics, data sets, and languages. So the third one is how this knowledge influences the design or the NLP, the actual NLP technology that we use. And finally, these technologies have, broader social impact because they affect communications, access to services, and digital participation, because most tools and technologies are now AI guided technologies. Alongside gender inequality, so there's also significant language inequality in AI technologies. Although there are, more than 7,000 languages in the world, most AI systems are developed for only a small number of dominant languages, which we previously seen as English, Japanese, French, and other languages. So research by Stephen Bird in 2020 discusses that how language technologies can prioritize powerful global languages while neglecting languages spoken in global south. So most researchers focus on in the global north setting because most of the languages that are dominant are they exist in the global north. So this issue is particularly important for Africa. So the continent has more than 2,000 languages, but very few of them are well presented in AI datasets or most of NLP researches. So here we say if AI is being positioned as a development infrastructure in Africa, because there are a lot of initiatives that support the development of AI, like AI for D for development, which is AI for D, yeah. And there are a lot of other initiatives that support us and influences Africa to use these technologies for a better good. But understanding the participation in the pattern, understanding the pattern in NLP knowledge production will help to produce more equitable development of those technologies. Here, I think it's best to give the example of one more research called State and Fate of Linguistic Diversity and Inclusion in NLP World. So this research was conducted on all languages in the world, and the researcher called this a language race, which he divided the category into 6. So he first categorized languages in the left behinds. The first category is the left behinds. So these languages have been and are still ignored in the aspect of language technology. So they're not even included. They don't even have data sets. They don't even have labeled resources. So with exceptionally limited resources, it will probably be impossible effort to lift them up in the digital space. It will take like a lot of years to make them present in a digital space. So the second category is the scraping bias. So here, this language have a better chance than the left behind ones, but with some amount of unlabeled data, there's probably a possibility that they could be better, in a better position in the race, maybe in matter of years. So the third category is the hopeful ones. The hopeful ones are with the light at the end of the tunnel. These languages still fight on with their gasping breaths. And a small set of labeled data set has been collected for these languages. So here I want to mention two things. When we do these technologies or we design these technologies, there are labeled data and unlabeled data. So for the labeled data, human effort is used, and the data is well defined or well structured. So we need more labor to produce this kind of data. And they are very time consuming, and they are used for many NLP applications, like named entity recognition, classification, and things similar to this. And the unlabeled data, they are just raw text corpora that we can get from, Wikipedia and on the social media and things like that. So we usually train our language models with these two kinds of data. So when I say labeled data and unlabeled data, I want you to think about how time consuming is labeled data. So the hopeful ones have a small number of labeled data that has been collected for these languages, but still they lack a lot of these technologies. So the fourth one are the rising stars languages with a strong web presence. So there's a thriving cultural community online for them. That means most of the social communities on social media write on those languages or communicate with those languages. So there is a better web presence. But however, still they have been laid down by insufficient efforts in labeled data collection. So this is why labeled data collection matters. And maybe with the right steps, these languages can be very well off if they continue to ride the pre-training wave, or if a research community is dedicated enough to collect this labeled data and turn them into useful NLP technologies and train them in models. So the fifth ones are the underdogs, which are powerful and capable, and these languages pack serious amounts of resources or firepower. So they have a large amount of unlabeled data compared to those possessed by the winners, which I will later talk about. And they are only challenged by a lesser amount of labeled data. So they have a lot of unlabeled data, but they still lack labeled data for their for training their language technology or models. So with the dedicated NLP communities and conducting a lot of researches on them, these languages can have the potential to become to become winners and enjoy the fruits of, digital superiority, like the ones that are that have right now. So lastly, the winners. So these languages are the winners in the race and they are strong and fast, and these languages have been in the lead for quite a while now, some longer than the others, but the other are still catching up to be in this category. So, as you guess, the winners are the dominant language that we have been discussed in the previous slide. So, these languages are English, Spanish, German, Japanese, and French. So these languages are the dominant languages. And surprisingly, I mentioned this because of any of these categories, there are a very few African languages that are categorized in this language race. And they are even below the second category. Most African languages are classified as low resource languages. Maybe Swahili and Afrikaans language is in the second category, but still the second categories are those which are struggling to have even unlabeled data. So saying this, I want to highlight, initiatives that are trying to change this narrative and work in Africa. So when we say Afrikaans languages are under-resourced, but there's still a lot of work that has been done in the area. I want to really appreciate and highlight that. And as you see here, Language Technology for All initiative, because everybody in its own language should be able to use the language technologies that we see in the global north. So let's discuss how the African NLP landscape is right now. So Africa has a lot of languages, but few of them are made into language technology tools. So there's a minimal representation in AI, as we talked earlier. Among all, Swahili is better resourced, but even these better resourced languages, African languages, are still considered as low resource globally. So this reflects the global inequalities in AI and focusing on NLP development. So one initiative that I want to highlight and present is the Maskahana initiative. So the Maskahana initiative is a Pan-African NLP community in Africa. So it works actively on open data sets, preparing open data sets, and also by Africans for Africans. So Maskahana means we build together in isiZulu. I'm not sure if I said it right.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And their goal is for Africans to shape and own these technologies, advances towards human dignity and well-being, and also equity, which we mention in this research frequently. So they have tried to build data sets for NLP benchmarks. So the Maskahana community has developed and published, multiple large data sets for NLP tasks across many African languages. And this includes Maskahana NER. So NER is an NLP technology that helps to recognize names of people, for example, African names, African places, organizations in Africa. So they have developed a Maska NER for over 20 diverse African languages, which is really appreciated. And they have also prepared a Maskahana Pulse application, which supports a part of speech tagging datasets covering dozens of languages for synthetic analysis in NLP. So this basically helps to annotate and create a labeled data. So it's a part of speech tag datasets. And there is also a Mafand MT for machine translation. So this is a machine translation corpus, Anglo and Franco-African news corpus. They use this corpus for training their models. And they are used for building translation models between English, French, and many African languages. So using English and French as a benchmark to translate these African languages into French and into English and vice versa. So when languages are not included in technological development, speakers of those languages may have, limited access to digital services, online information, and they're not being able to use some communication tools. So therefore, language inequality in AI is not just a technical issue. It's not just something that be included in just the algorithms or in the models, but it's also a social issue that is related to inclusion, representation, and access. So here I have summarized what I have been discussing: communication, representation, identity, and access to service. So when we mean by communication, voice assistants or translation systems often work well in English or the dominant languages that have won the race, but poorly in many African languages. And when we come to representation refers to whether a language and its speakers are present in digital data space or data sets, models, and technology. So if African languages are in that technology, it represents Africa. So there's also an identity. When technology supports a language, it helps to preserve the cultural expression and identity in digital spaces, because languages are often associated with identity. And also access to services, which is language technologies can really influence who can access digital and public services or platforms. So students will be able to understand the technology well if it's in their own local languages, and office workers, anyone who interacts with digital space will understand the technology or things more if it's in its own indigenous language. So we have seen the global narrative of AI focusing on NLP, and we have seen how Africa African landscape is in NLP, and now we are narrowing down to Ethiopia. So why Ethiopia? So Ethiopia is particularly interesting case for studying AI and language technology because it has linguistic diversity, has language politics, and also emerging AI institutions. So the country has more than 80 languages, 80 languages, and a complex linguistic landscape, which is especially Amharic and some other languages have a morphologically very complex language. And language in Ethiopia is closely connected to politics, identity, and education, because Ethiopia has never been colonized, and our official language is one of our indigenous language, which is called Amharic. So historically, Amharic has been the main official language, but many other languages are wide spoken, like Afan Oromo, Tigrinya, Somali, and other languages. So at the same time, Ethiopia is building an emerging AI ecosystems with institutions such as our university, where I teach, Addis Ababa University, and also the Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute. So understanding who participates in this growing research community is very important for designing an inclusive technological development. So the Ethiopian AI Institute, we have an Ethiopian AI Institute. So which later is renamed as the Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute. It was established in 2020 by our Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed. And it's originally as the Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Center, but the Council of Ministers upgraded the center to an institute through the regulation. So signaling Ethiopia's bold commitment to digital transformation and technological sovereignty. One focus area of this institution is language technology, or NLP. And when we come to the National AI Policy 2024, we have a strategic roadmap for AI adoption, or how these technologies are adopted in Ethiopian context. Or I think every country in Africa is trying to achieve this policy. So ensuring that AI development aligns with Ethiopia's economic and social priorities, or how it should be contextually based. There's also a Digital Ethiopia 2030, which includes AI research and development, data governance and infrastructure, ethical and legal frameworks, and working for inclusion. And the last one is, and the fourth one is Addis Ababa University, which is a major site for artificial intelligence research outputs. Most of the AI NLP related researches come from Addis Ababa University. So this university is the largest and the leading academic institution in Ethiopia, as well as in East Africa. So many of the data sets, the language technology, the computation, linguistics come from Addis Ababa University. And also Addis Ababa University collaborates with the Ethiopian AI Institute and contributes to Digital Ethiopia 2030. Most of our scholars there involved in the policy making and in the national AI policy strategy development. So it's almost a major site for artificial intelligence. There is also Ethio NLP initiative that has been actively working in NLP developing for Ethiopia. So it's a formal research community and resource hub dedicated to NLP for Ethiopian languages. It was started to bring researchers together and create shared data sets and build tools because Ethiopian languages are underrepresented in many AI and NLP research, as we have seen earlier. So this involves researchers from university in Ethiopia and abroad. And we have a community building like workshops and conferences in NLP. Also, this initiative prepares corpus and dataset creations for Amharic corpora, NER, or the named entity recognition datasets. And the one I mentioned earlier was the Maskahana, the part of speech tagging sets, hate speech datasets that helps to detect hate speech on social media. Amharic English parallel corpora that I explained in the machine translation how translation works, and also the question classification sets and some other NLP technologies. And it also involves in language model development, tools for NLP like post-text classification in machine translations like Ethio LLM, or a major research output from Ethio NLP, which is a set of multilingual large language models trained for several Ethiopian languages, including, Amharic, Ge'ez, Afan Oromo, Somali, and Tigrinya, plus English as a benchmark. So this initiative is really working hard on providing an open sourced models, benchmark datasets, Ethio benchmark, called Ethio benchmark, and evaluation across core NLP tasks. And these models aim to reduce the gap between low resource languages, and global NLP performance. So seeing the Ethiopian NLP landscape, now let's move to the theoretical framework. I'll try to make it short here. So we have guided our research from three major theoretical frameworks. So the first is socio-technical imaginaries. This developed by Sheila Jasanoff. So this concept explains how society imagine future technologies and how these visions influence research priorities and technological development, which we discussed earlier. And also the other framework that we will use is situated knowledge, which was introduced by Donna Haraway. So Haraway basically argues that knowledge is always produced from a particular social and cultural perspective. So this means that there is no completely neutral point of view. Everybody who participates in something is the result of their social background, their thinking, their perspective. So there is no completely neutral point of view. And the third perspective comes from the feminist STS, or science and technology studies. So this technofeminism was developed by Judy Watchman. And this study argues that how gender relations shapes technology and how technologies in turn shapes gender relations. So gender shapes technology and technology shapes gender at the same time. So together, this perspective helps us to understand how social inequalities can become embedded in technological systems. They also encourage us to look beyond the technical aspects of artificial intelligence and related fields and consider the social and the institutional contexts in which technologies are developed. So we need to examine these technologies based on the social outcome and the contribution and the effect they make on our society. So by examining gender representation in NLP research, this will help us to better understand whose knowledge is being produced. Is it balanced? Whose perspective influences AI systems? Now, is it equitable? And who ultimately benefits from these technological developments? Which communities are involved or not, or addressed or not? So this perspective also allows us to analyze artificial intelligence, not just as a technical system, but as a social system shaped by power, representation, and also participation. I want to add one interesting paper here called the Cyborg Manifesto. So this is introduced by Donna Haraway also, and she challenges that technology is objective and it cannot be detached from society. So instead, knowledge and technology are produced within social systems that include gender power relations. So this explains how social inequalities can become embedded in these technological systems. So when we move to the research methodology, the research analyzes NLP publications and research outputs associated with Ethiopian institutions. We followed a mixed approach with qualitative and quantitative methodology. So the quantitative part of the study analyzes publications related to AI and NLP produced from Addis Ababa University. And the datasets overviews will be author gender representation. It includes research topics and subfields, institutional affiliations, language coverage in NLP research, and changes in participation over time. So the dataset is screened for Ethiopian language focus, alter metadata. We use screened for gender identification where ethically and publicly available. It's also organized by year, topic, languages, department, and gender distribution. The number of outputs currently are 279 NLP outputs, which is a great number, and 465 artificial intelligence research outputs. So this is from the period 1992 to 2025. So when we move to the qualitative side, the qualitative part of the study involves interviews with researchers, students and industry professionals working actively on NLP. So these interviews explore experiences entering the field, mentorship opportunities, research collaboration, and perception of bias. How do they perceive the biases that we have discussed earlier? So the interview will follow the purposive sampling with a snowball approach. We are planning to start with a few researchers and then hierarchically, referrally going to the next researchers. And we are planning to include 22 to 25 participants. We're going to balance the data, 50% male and 50% female to have a balanced perspective on both. And we will include early career researchers, mid-career researchers, and also advanced researchers in the field. So the participants will be master's and PhD students, industry NLP workers, and also faculty that recently that are actively working on AI and NLP. So as I told you, this is an ongoing research. So we have scheduled the interview data collection for within March and at the end of April, following institutional research guidelines, IRB, HSRC. So the themes that will be explored will be, experiences entering NLP and workplace culture, access to research communities, mentorship and supervision, how they are mentored, if that has a relationship with which NLP topics they choose, the supervision, perception of bias, as I explained earlier, and also leadership and visibility, which category is visible more and why. So now let's move to the analysis part. So we did some part of analysis on the output of these NLP researches. So the first one is the frequency of languages in NLP datasets. So here, as you see, there is Amharic, Afan Oromo. These are the Ethiopian languages, which are at the x-axis. Amharic, Afan Oromo, English, Tigrinya, Ge'ez. There are still languages that are unspecified. There is an Ethiopian Sign Language and Guraginya, which is another Ethiopian local language, Walaita, Kafinunu, and Awin are among the languages. So as you see here, outputs that are dominated by certain languages. So we see here the inequality we see in the global north, in the Western is also it seems like it's duplicating itself here because one language is dominant here and the others are, of course, they are tried to be included in many of the researches. That is appreciated, but still there is a significant gap between Amharic and the other languages, Ethiopian languages. So from this, we can conclude that other Ethiopian languages receive far less attention, the same way as it is seen in the Western. The field shows multilingual efforts, but with a strong imbalance. Still, there is a consistent gender, imbalance in between the languages. So coming to gender, this is the overall gender distribution percentage. So there seems to be a 40% of female participation in the NLP outputs and 85% of male participants or researchers in artificial intelligence, specifically NLP research outputs. So this is gender distribution by year. As you see in the image, there seems to be no participation of female researchers through the period of 1995 to 2000, but there were few male researchers here. So it gradually increases from the year 2000 to 2005. It's not consistent, but it's gradually increasing, which is a good sign. And the peak for the female participation here in the researches starts in the year 2015 and in 2020. So here we can see two things. The first is the research by itself, the NLP field by itself is growing through time, and the participation is also growing through time. So the temporal distribution shows that while NLP research output has increased significantly over time, but still female participation remains consistently lower. So there is a gap. Although there are signs of gradual improvement after 2015 that I explained earlier, but the gender gap persists throughout the research period. So this is NLP research growth by gender and policy epochs. Here there are initiatives or policy changes that were implemented by the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia. So the first that you see is the STEM expansion. The foundational is before they introduced the STEM expansion, so that is the normal stage. And when we come to the STEM expansion, this is when Ethiopia education system introduced the STEM expansion, which is 70% of the university students will involve in STEM fields, and 30% will involve in the rest disciplines. So this has helped NLP to grow a lot, but you can see here the female participation is still a little low. And the third you see is AI for development. This is where artificial intelligence has been, NLP specifically has been used as a major developmental factor. So here there is also a good number of research outputs there. And the last one you see is the strategic AI, where a strategic AI policies has been introduced. But the numbers are still inconsistent. So this is how NLP research were growing through the research period. So next you see a word cloud of bigram. So this helped us to see the epistemologic knowledge production. So this is the refined research words for male authors, so the refined research words. And here you see the word that frequently appears on their researches. So they are synthesis, retrieval, translation, detection, stemming, and things like that. And when you see the refined research words in female authors, the word cloud, it's more classification, word, sense, disambiguation, probabilistic, grammar detection, and so on. So this helps us to see female-authored NLP research may demonstrate a stronger orientation towards contextual and multilingual realities, which this contextual realities are like examining how these languages are used in context and the power dynamics between the impact of environmental factors on language choice and identity. And the male-authored NLP research demonstrate a stronger orientation towards a modeling or algorithmic realities. So examining and designing models for NLP technology. So here we have to be careful not to generalize that female authored are only into multilingual realities and male are into algorithm and modeling, but still they both are doing the most important important parts of NLP or applications of NLP technology. So the other one is Sankey visualization. So we did this because we needed to identify the gendered participation that can be mirrored from the departments in Addis Ababa University. And it seems that the gendered participation in NLP mirrors the broader masculinization of technical departments. So as you see in the image, computer science and information science departments are the lead for most of the AI and NLP research outputs. So they contribute a lot to this paper researches. And there's also other departments like computer engineering, information system, information technology, School of Information Technology and Engineering, linguistics, and also communication engineering. They are also trying to conduct this researches, NLP researches. So you see that computer science and information science or computer engineering used to be dominated by the department itself was dominated by male researchers. So it seems that it's mirroring the same thing in this NLP technologies. So there is a speech and multimodal language processing here. There's a morphology, syntax, and linguistic analysis in the second one. Machine translation and cross-lingual NLP, text generation, question answering, and dialogue systems, and text classification and sentiment analysis. There's also text representation and language modeling. And finally, there is information extraction and text understanding. So here you see how the male researchers and the female researchers are involved in this each topics of NLP itself. So you can see there is a better involvement of female researchers in text classification and sentiment analysis than most of the other NLP applications. So here we can say that gendered participation mirrors the broader masculinization of these departments, and also the Sankey visualization illustrates the institutional and the topical structure of NLP research. So key insights from this just preliminary results is that NLP knowledge production is really shaped by both gender representation and language priorities, which together can influence the language that receives the technology. And the structure of the research community may affect the structure of language technology development. So to generalize this, there's persistent disparity the participation shapes infrastructure because we are narrating AI, specifically NLP, as an infrastructure. And it revealed that there needs to be more investigation on the causes of these variations, pipeline effects, language hierarchies, and also if there is a funding pattern that encourages one to do a research on specific areas or specific languages, and if how that funding pattern affects this outcome. The first one is NLP research output in Ethiopia has significantly increased over time, which I mentioned earlier. This is a good sign to be indigenous language to be included in these language technologies. And also female participation has also increased, but still it remains significantly lower than male participation. So this suggests that although the field is growing, but still gender disparities persist as our hypothesis. Another finding relates to language distribution, which is most NLP research focused on Amharic, while many other Ethiopian languages receives much less attention. So this pattern suggests that both gender and language priorities shapes knowledge in NLP. So key takeaways from this will be so AI and NLP are becoming increasingly important. No one can deny how important these technologies are because we are using this technology almost every day, especially the language technology. We are using Siri, we are using Google Search, we are using Google Translate and large language models like ChatGPT. So it has almost even unconsciously become our it's part of our life. And however, you know, both gender inequality and language inequality influences these languages, these technologies, and how these technologies are developed. So the research finally revealed that participation patterns in communities can shape the knowledge production or produced in that specific context, technological priorities, and also language representation. So understanding these dynamics is essential to build more inclusive as well as equitable AI systems. So I would like to end this with one important question. Who gets to shape the systems that shape us? So I think this is all about my presentation. Thank you, Dr. Sar. Now we can pass to reflection, question and suggestions and comments as well. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Nudiat, for a very timely and informative presentation. So for the audience, you can ask your questions by typing either in the Q&A section. That's better than the chat, but I think you already have one question in the chat. But if you can put it in the Q&A, that would be better. You can also raise your hand and be unmuted to speak directly, to ask your question directly, okay? So while you look for that question, I have one question that I would like to ask. You talk about the national AI policy, and I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that and if it's doing anything to kind of reduce this disparity in gender. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on the national AI policy, what is actually doing?
Okay. Well, I cannot say much about the policy influencing the gendered participation. That would be something that I will look in more into the future. But the policy is more focusing on governing how AI or specifically NLP is governed in Ethiopian context. How we should use these technologies in Ethiopian context. So the policy is more focused on producing inclusive technologies, and they are designing to accommodate or to develop, more researches on these specific areas. NLP is one part of it, but there are a lot of other AI technology research areas. They are actively working on agriculture, health sector. So it's more like AI governance than directly participating on the gendered part. So, yeah, one output from this research will be the policy implication that really needs to include on this strategies and like policies. When these policies are developed, we have to be more conscious about these variations.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the audience?
In the chat, I think I don't see any question. It's just notes.
Okay. Yeah, I saw earlier Mike the other ask a question about
But there are people raising hands.
okay, so let's go to people. Bahati. Bahati, can you unmute?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for organizing again this presentation for our UMAP scholar. I'm Bahati Charles Kayaga, a UMAP scholar. I'm happy to see Nuniati presenting this wonderful topic, and I'm so excited with this topic, and I was just listening it, and it is just a beautiful topic for the current situation that we have on the part of the artificial intelligence. So for me, I would like to contribute. I don't have a direct question, but I would like to contribute on the part of the language, for especially for us African, the way you presented and the way the result. It seems that we as African, we still don't have our language that can work better to the artificial intelligence compared to the English language that is doing well, because the English language is just spoken almost all over the world. Compared to the African language. So I think now is the time now for African countries to be proud with our language, and especially now for East Africa, we are trying to use the Swahili language so that to be common, to be used by many people, so as it could be easy for the Swahili language also to be integrated on the part of the artificial intelligence. So I think that will work better, but I was just maybe looking on the other maybe language that can be also be used to the African language, for example, that you say for isiZulu. I don't know much about it. That of South Africa. So for me, I would like to say that as the African, it's the time now to be proud with our language, to use more our language, so that it could be easy for that language to be integrated on the issue of artificial intelligence, instead of relying only in English, and as we can see now, the English is doing good on the part of that artificial intelligence, and our language there are not doing good. But also the last part I was just, maybe you can clarify to me. I was just like to asking myself, the focus of the study is that the language is the one which is the main focus, or the gender that is the main focus. But what I was just observing is just like the language is the one which is the main focus, and then you integrated the part of gender. So I just need a little clarification on that part. Otherwise, I just congratulate for the good work, and I see it is the a hard work that you have done to make sure that you have this kind of well-structured academic written work. So I congratulate you, Nuni. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bahati. I will start by clarifying from the point that you raised at the end. I focused on language a lot because the work that I'm doing is natural language processing. You cannot see gender without focusing on language, you know. Since the technology itself includes language, so we see whatever we include in the research should be from the perspective of these languages. That's why the languages seems a little more explained than the gender participation. And thank you very much for the appreciation. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And there's a question, from Leo. So it says, thanks for the great presentation. To what extent are Ethiopian policies intentionally gender sensitive, and what mechanisms are needed for auditing AI systems for gender bias? Well, it's kind of same question that Dr. Sar earlier asked it. This research is also a policy implication. It also contributes to be cautious about the policies that we make. I've tried to skim through the policy document, but it only mentions the inclusivity there. There should be, you know, languages should be included because language technologies are supposed to be for all, and there should be a equal balance or gender inclusive researches or technologies should be there, and they're more focused on the governance rather than the gender sensitive part, but I cannot generalize it for now. I think we need to look into more on the policy part and contribute to that policy, because we need to include this perspective on auditing AI systems.
Okay, so Zainab, you can unmute and ask your question or make a comment.
Okay, thank you so much, Nuni, for a beautiful presentation. Because I don't have much knowledge on AI, but I really enjoyed the presentation. I just have a suggestion on an article I read recently, which was published, that is around February 21st. Yeah, this year, February. It's Laura Bates. She's the author of The New Age of Sexism. So she talked about AI, equity, and gender. When you were presenting, my mind came to that article. It's a very interesting article that really captures what you were presenting. And in her article, when you read her article, you'll be able to see how you can solve the problem of the low participants. Is it LP? Yeah, LP, female low participant. Because she was saying in her article that until AI tool are realized with safety design guideline or guide rails, it's going to be difficult to have a high female high female participation. So her book summarizes, like, if you look at what Laura Bates is saying, it summarizes how equity and gender can be solved, or the causes. I think one of the causes she mentioned was AI being the reason why AI is not really productive is when we look at the security, the inaccuracy that has that, and the inaccuracy in terms of misrepresentation in gender and translation. We realize that it's because of one of the causes was because of unchecked AI hallucination. So she has the courses there. Maybe it will fit into your structure, like the Ethiopian structure. She has some courses. She mentioned that some AI tool doesn't support the design, the way it's designed. It doesn't support female, so it's going to be difficult to achieve some of these things you've mentioned. She also talked about the AI, the unchecked AI hallucination. It might be part of the courses. She also talked about the framework, when we keep on looking at one international framework. So just look at Laura Bates, her 2000 and her February 2026 publication, her article. I think she has published about 3 articles on AI, equity, and gender. And that's just my suggestion. And I just want to say something, especially in African studies, where we have policies and implementation. It's very difficult to have like a clear-cut policy in Africa. I don't know. I'm from Nigeria, so I don't know in Ethiopia. In Nigeria, it's very difficult when you have a clear-cut policy, and it's not. It is not about policy. It's about implementation, and it's not also about implementation. It's about how the implementation moves, because sometimes the implementation is there, but the movement is not. Is like. Is like movement without motion. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but just look at Laura Bates. But your presentation was so interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for enlightening us.
It's a question. Thank you so much, Zainab. Thank you very much for the constructive comments. I'll read more on the paper that you suggested, and yeah, that's also what I'm trying to do in the context of Africa, specifically in Ethiopia, to find out the causes. The problem is there, but we need to find a solution and cause-effect relationship to show more on cause-effect relationships, and yeah, and AI is not well, the environment doesn't invite or include more females to the work, because one reason might be, you know, when using the forming the research communities, forming the team, it's not always considered to be, you know, balanced. And I think it's most of the a perspective problem also, and we can see that the perception of the gender dynamics in artificial intelligence, or in other technological fields, the how knowledge is produced in gender dynamics seems to be low. So the perception should also be there. And thank you very much. Okay. Okay. So there's Okay, there is one more question. Okay, it's more of okay, Leo wanted, oh no, Latif wanted to know about the relationship between Africans' participation on social media using indigenous languages and AI technology for indigenous African languages. Well, on social media, honestly, I haven't been looked into that perspective, so it's really nice to include that in my as one part of my research. But in our Ethiopian case, I can mention very few people use Amharic language in the social platform in the social media platform. So it's very low. So, one way to increase our data sets, even if it's unlabeled, is to write more on our own languages. So we can collect that raw data, and so we can clean it and label it and use it for language technologies. But I believe the social media usage in indigenous language is very low. So the more we participate in our own language in web, there will be more digital presence. That language will appear more in those platforms. And when we try to scrape from web and try to model this technologies, it will be very helpful. So yeah, they have like a direct relationship.
I think you have one question on the Q&A.
I think that's the one that I just answered. Is there some other?
Okay, so let's allow.
Oh, one more. Okay, one more from Janet.
Should I go? Where's the audio? Oh, sorry, I can't find where's my audio?
Okay, there's okay. So can go now, and then Janet will continue. You can figure out until then, or you can ask here.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Solomon.
Yes, good evening. I'm calling from Uganda, Kampala. I'm very much impressed with Dr. Bebe's presentation. But I would like to ask one question. Earlier on, the presenter talked about using French or English as the basis for AI translation of African indigenous languages. What guarantee do you give us about preserving and protecting the originality and creativity and the wisdom within the African languages? Because you know that African languages are very powerful tools for heritage. There's a lot of history, there's a lot of wisdom in our languages. Now, when we bring French and English, won't we lose a lot from our beautiful languages in Africa? Thank you so much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. This is a great question. So as you know, most of these language technologies have a benchmark of these dominant languages. Of these dominant languages, there is French and English. So what these systems do is, for example, in machine translation, we use English as a benchmark, and it translates one indigenous language into English, and from English into machine translation. And the same works in French for French speaking African countries. For example, we can translate from their indigenous languages to French and vice versa. So we cannot currently it's very difficult to have a machine translation from, for example, let's say from Isihulu to Ethiopian language Amharic, or from Amharic to Oromifa through these languages, because all of them are low-resourced or under-resourced languages, and we need a high-resourced languages to use as a benchmark. But currently, I think some of the researchers in Maskahana, as well as in Ethio NLP in Ethiopia, are trying to come up with our own benchmark data sets.
So I saw Janet, if she wants to say something, maybe 1 minute, because we are out of time.
Okay, can she say something on my? I
Yes,
think
yes.
she has been a difficulty in
No,
her.
there's nothing there.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, and I think you can continue the discussion there at University of Michigan. But thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much, Awa. Thank you. I don't know, playing my audio. I thought perhaps I was meant to get some, go ahead when I have the chance to speak. I'm so sorry for that confusion. So for me, first is to merely congratulate my fellow colleague, Nuni, for such a very great job. And obviously, this is quite a very convoluted topic to navigate. And I'm really super impressed. And before this, I thought, how's it going to look like? And since it's more of software engineering, technology, how does it fit in the social sciences? But now I think it's very, very clear. Congratulations once again. But also quickly to mention that this is particularly a very important question or topic as far as we talk about, we're beginning to think about the decolonization of everything that's colonial in a way, and actually it builds into this particular discourse. Just to add a point around intersectionality, I really appreciate how you kind of brought together all those social markers in, within your work. But just to perhaps also suggest, building on Zainab's suggestion, that perhaps you really consider perhaps a clear theoretical framing around intersectionality and gender, AI, that also taking into consideration that the politics of difference among the genders, even the women, like to what extent, I would really want to know, this might be of interest, to what extent would women of another color, I don't want to call the colors, but perhaps be more integrated into this AI, because the assumption is that women are disenfranchised, but within women, we do have the hierarchies that are actually socially constructed. So it would be very great to understand, of the 14%, for example, what race is that? And also taking into account that things are changing. For example, we now have quite a number of young women getting excited in studying STEM, not only STEM subjects, but also technology and AI. And how does the future look like? Are we still gonna have those Ks or those, figures, or what are your projections moving forward? And obviously, I want to talk more about the mother tongue issues, which is more sociological, and the language, perhaps the grand theories, that psychological theories like Piaget's and then Skinner's and so forth. Perhaps if you could also try and bring them into the picture as a bigger project moving beyond this, perhaps more for your future studies. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Hawa
to
and that team.
thank you so much to everybody, and once again, thank you to Taya and to the African Studies at the University of Michigan. We appreciate the collaboration, and thank you again, Nuniat, for a very timely presentation, and we hope to hear from you when you got the results. Thank you, everybody,
Thank you.
for coming. We're out of time, and we'll talk next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.